swiftly forwards onto a man, unfortunately, who is struggling at the London Stadium at West Ham United, David Moyes. Still no news around his future. Sounds like he could be penning a contract fairly soon, but bit uncertain. Of course, we saw them get absolutely decimated by Arsenal at the weekend. Daniel, what's your feeling and what's your reaction to that? Do you expect David Moyes to be in the job next season?
I think it's an interesting one with Moyes, because I think the fans are kind of done with him, in the sense of he's done what he can do there. He got European football in back-to-back seasons. He won them a trophy. He got to a semi-final the year before that. He's in the knockout stages again this year, and they're 8th, I think it is. But he just doesn't inspire. He's just really boring. And I think the fans are at a point now where, with the squad they have, with players like Paqueta and Bowen and Kudus, obviously they just lost Rice, but that squad should be doing more than parking a bus and countering to win 1-0 against Crystal Palace kind of thing. I think that's where the fans are at with it. They can see a ceiling higher than what Moyes can take them to. And I don't think anybody will say Moyes has done a bad job at West Ham, because he hasn't. That would be a lie. He took them over in a relegation battle, and now they're European champions, if you ask their fans. But I think there is a ceiling, and I think he has hit that ceiling. And I think at this point, it seems like he's kind of working backwards. I would be surprised if he was still there next year, personally, just because I think there's been issues with him and Tim Stuyton. When it comes to recruitment, I think Mark Noble seems to be more on Tim Stuyton's side of how to do things when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to bringing in younger players and a bit more expansive football. And with the fact that his contract is up, it's not really a decision you need to make. You just kind of let the contract expire and you go a different direction, rather than having to sack him or him having to resign. I think it's kind of a natural end to things. You probably should have gone last year, because you're not going to beat being European champion. But I would be surprised if he was still there. Who replaces him, though?
Don't say Jurgen Klopp.
I mean, I think there's been interest in Steve Cooper, who I would have thought was a shoo-in for Palace, but that doesn't look likely anymore. But again, Cooper, we've seen him at Forest. He didn't exactly rip up any trees, and they were struggling too. So would that be a backward step? It's hard to say. But I do think Moyes has just kind of, he's hit his limit at West Ham, and I think it would be the sensible decision from everyone to move on at this point.
Paul, what do you make of those comments?
Listen, you know what I think about David Moyes, and you know what I think about the job that he's done at West Ham. People in football have short memories. When he took over that club and they were fighting relegation, when he came back from a second time, took a club that was fighting relegation to European champions. And then again this season, they've been in 6th for the majority of the season. I mean, they're having a bad run at the moment. They've got no wins in 7 in all competitions, hence the reason that this conversation comes up again. But yet they're sat with a European trophy. They're current European champions, once again competing in the Europa League, and sat in European positions again in the league. Yeah, have they hit their ceiling? I think they've got the ceiling. Where else can West Ham go on the budget that they've got? They've got fantastic players that don't play a certain style of football. Defensively, David Moyes sets his team up. And actually, surprisingly, they've conceded too many goals this season for the way that they play. I mean, yes, they've got Paqueta, they've got Bowen, they've got Ward-Prowse, Calvin Phillips will get better. You look at the squad that they've got, but actually where they sit in the league, Liverpool, are they better than Liverpool? They're not. Are they better than Man City? They're not. Arsenal, Tottenham, Villa, Man United, they're level on points with Newcastle, the richest club in the world. And this is West Ham also competing in Europe while having a European trophy in the cabinet. Be careful what you wish for. I mean, I understand the fans, the way that they want to play, a different way of playing with David Moyes. And from David Moyes' point of view, the job that he's done there, if he feels that he's got them to a ceiling, why not just go, do you know what, thank you very much, there you go, drop the mic and walk, and there you go. Somebody else pick that up and get that out, get what I've got from that same group of players. But like I say, you know, the managers that you're looking at, I looked again this morning that they're linked with, potentially, Michael Carrick, Benitez, Steve Cooper. I mean, Steve Cooper at Nottingham Forest did an unbelievable job with what he got at Nottingham Forest from the Championship. Do they want a Championship manager? Do they want a manager that struggled to keep a team in the Premier League if they wanted to go on to the next level? I mean, it's a case of, you know, I understand what the fans want, the way that they want to play, and they're fed up of seeing the style of football. Completely understand that. But actually, where further up this table can West Ham go other than another European finish this season? I think the next few weeks are going to be key, really key. They were away at Forest, they're at home to Brentford, they're at Everton, and they're at home to Burnley. If they don't pick up points and performances then I think this conversation really will rear its head.
I think I understand what you're saying in terms of be careful what you wish for, but I think you could say West Ham will feel that why can't they be doing what Aston Villa have done? Aston Villa were really struggling with Steven Gerrard. They made a switch to bring in a better manager. And with the same squad, he went from fighting relegation to battling for Europe in the same season. And then this year, they've pushed on even further than that, and they're pushing for a Champions League spot against those elite clubs that you mentioned. West Ham fans, I think, will be feeling, why can't we do that? We have as good a squad as Aston Villa to a point. That with a bit of, with a bit more of an injection of cash, which they have money. They're not broke. They could compete for the same players Villa compete for, and with a more forward-thinking manager, those draws against who have they drawn? Draws against an Everton, or a draw against a Crystal Palace, or a draw against a Brentford could easily turn into wins, and those wins then put them above Newcastle in the league, or put them above a struggling Man United side in the league. And I think that's where their mindset is of, if we had somebody who was a bit more forward-thinking, we may drop off, but we could also push on the other way, in the way Aston Villa have. And there's no reason why, with the squad they have, with players like Paqueta and Kudus and Bowen and Alvarez and Ward-Prowse, Calvin Phillips, Kurt Zouma at the back is not a rubbish centre-back. They've got players who you would expect would perform better, because whenever I see West Ham in the Europa League or the Conference League, I expect them to win those games. And when they don't win those games, regardless of opposition, because when you look at the players on the paper, they generally have a better team than most teams in that competition. And that's the frustration of a West Ham fan, I think, is we could do better than what we're doing. We're doing great, but we could do even better. And keeping Moyes, if he's the issue, he may not be the issue. You may be spot on in the fact that no one can get what he's got from this team. But I think they would, at this point, it's been 3 years, I think, of Moyes, where they've done brilliantly. But there's that what if of, if we were a bit more forward thinking, if we were a bit more attacking, if we put a little bit more money into it, could we be doing what Aston Villa have done in a year and a half? But
then managerial recruitment is vital. And then, you look at the names that are linked and the names that we looked at this morning, there's not one on there that I looked at. They talk about Benitez. That just wouldn't inspire me as a West Ham fan. You look at where would they go? Do you give David Moyes till the end of the season? Do you replace him now? Where do they go? I understand what you're saying about Villa and Emery. They really stuck their neck out and got Emery. Where do West Ham get the next Emery from? And I think Villa this season, they've had a great start to the season. Recent form, they've dipped. Let's see where they end up. But the attacking quality that West Ham have got, I think it's a really interesting time. There's decisions to be made there, because I think if they do give David Moyes a new contract, there will be a pushback. There'll be a big pushback from a big section of fans, because, like you say, a lot are forward thinking. The way that we're playing, can we get more? Can we do a little bit more? Like every football fan is, and wants more from their club, and that the expectation and realization. It's the old thing, isn't it? With success comes expectation. And is it the team that have hit the ceiling, or is it the manager that's hit the ceiling? And the board have got a really big decision to make. And like I said, the next 4 fixtures are probably going to be crucial as to whether David Moyes stays between now and the end of the season. And come the end of the season, the board have got a huge decision to make. And the fact that it's gone this long, it makes you think there's either been discussions going on behind the scenes and there's an announcement imminent, or they don't know. They really don't know what they're going to do, which is a worrying thing.
I was going to say, I think at this point of the season, you're in middle of February. If someone's contract is up and you still don't know, that tells me you're not convinced. And if you're not convinced, you probably shouldn't be giving them a new deal.
Or there's a decision been made that we're not privy to the information.
And that's it.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.